You're running against Senator Lindsey Graham. Many view him as an established Republican who has been there way too long, I think in the Senate since 2003. So what are the main differences between you guys?
Well, he actually went in Congress and got elected in '94, so he's been there since Moby Dick was a minnow. And I'm a term limit guy. I limited myself. When I ran for the House of Representatives, the State House, at 26, I said 3 terms and I'm out. Well, I served 1 term and ended up getting elected to the Senate. I did 1 full term there, and then I ran for lieutenant governor, did 2 terms there. I could have run again and probably gotten elected, but I just didn't think that was how you should be. I'm a business guy at heart. I've been out now for 15 years. I didn't go try to make a living off the politics and get a lobbying job. I went right back to business. But that's kind of why I've gotten in this now. I'm frustrated. I've seen Lindsey Graham year after year go represent all over the globe and issues of wars and stirring the pot everywhere but South Carolina. We never see him in South Carolina. He's probably been to Ukraine more than he's probably been to Union, South Carolina in the last 30 years. And we want to see our effort of our senator in our home state, in our home country. We want to see a border that's actually protected. We want to see dollars allocated to the problems in our state and not all around the globe. USAID, for example, he was on the IRR board. They gave over $100 million away. That concerns us as taxpayers, as citizens. We're frustrated because we don't think he has our interests at heart anymore.
President Trump has endorsed Lindsey Graham, and that surprised a lot of the MAGA base. Do you think you would be able to steal that endorsement?
That's a great question. The first, a couple points. Number one, I endorsed the president in 2016 as one of the first people in America to endorse him. And that was February. And then he nominated to be an ambassador to Belize. And then in his re-election, I was on stage with Graham, and he introduced me and said André Bauer could run for anything and win. And then we both spoke in Pickens. I had a very warm reception. And Lindsey Graham actually was born in Pickens, and they booed him for 6 minutes off the stage. And so, look, I understand this is swamp, and the president's got to work with what he's been given. But let's send him some people that are real conservative, that are real MAGA, that don't flip-flop, that don't switch, that actually stand behind a record of conservatism. I fought my own party for 8 years. We had a bunch of folks same way, R by name, but really wanted to raise taxes. So for 8 years, I ruled every single tax increase they continued to propose. I was ruling them out of order as the lieutenant governor, presiding officer, because I don't believe in it. Government can't spend the money it has now efficiently, so I sure don't want to reward government with more money.
Why do you think voters have continued to keep Lindsey Graham in office when many MAGA voters feel the same way?
Lindsey Graham's never had a real opponent. No disrespect to the people that ran against him, but the most that one candidate ever spent against Lindsey Graham was $750,000. That year he spent over $12 million. So imagine $12 million versus $750, and that person had no name ID. This is the first time he's had somebody with real name ID that's actually held a big office in South Carolina that's going to have funding. And so I'd urge people watching this show to go to AndreBauer.com. We have a real opportunity to knock off one of the vipers of the Senate. And look, this is an unbelievable year. It's going to be an unbelievable year for the president, the people of this country, because Tom Tillis is going to be gone. McConnell's going to be gone. Cornyn's going to be gone. So the biggest creature of them all in the swamp is Lindsey Graham. Let us not forget, he's the one that said Joe Biden's one of the finest men he ever met. He voted 70% of the time in 22 with Biden. 70% he voted with the Democrats. This is a guy that confirmed Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, Sotomayor. He's not looking out for our interests. He's a puppet for the Democrats.
So what are maybe 3 main policy agenda items of your campaign that you would want to highlight to our audience?
So right off the bat, I believe in a 100% border security. Look, if we've got people that want to come to our country and assimilate, learn the language, be a part of the system, pay taxes, we ought to make it easier. It's a little hard for people to come in that are trying to do it the right way. And I'm all about people. My great-grandparents, my grandfather was a war hero, first American generation. And so we want that. And so that's a big one. He had Grahamnesty. They named amnesty after him because he was such an advocate for amnesty. I'm opposed to that. Secondly, I'm opposed to continuing to send any dollars overseas. Look, it's nice to be a good neighbor, but if you can't take care of your home base, if you can't pay your own bills, you're going to be a detriment to everything else. We've got to look at this debt. When he took over, the debt was less than $5 trillion. We're now at $37 trillion. That's not a good steward. He ran with a contract with America to reduce the debt. It's gone up $1 trillion a year since he's been in office. That's not conservatism. That's not MAGA. And so that's the 2 biggest things. And the last thing is South Carolina deserves to have a senator that's looking out for South Carolina. We don't see Lindsey Graham anymore. We want a fighter. We want a champion. We want a voice in Washington. We don't want a voice in Ukraine. That's not where we want our senator. That's not his job. His job is to represent South Carolina, not all these countries. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya. He's been in all these conflicts, always wanting to send boots on the ground and regime change. I'm opposed to that. I don't want to see any more American blood put on soil defending somebody else. Look, we'll help our friends and allies. Drones, the most modern technology, but we want to save lives. We don't want to continue this fight all around the world. And as a conservative, I want to look at some of the things we're doing right now. Ukraine, I think we need to have somebody go in and do a forensic audit of where the money went. But further, did you know that we have 840 military bases around the world, not on U.S. soil? I tell you this, South Carolina lost two of the most important bases. We had Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, we had Charleston Naval Yard, been there for years. Both of them closed during the BRAC. So we closed two right on the border, right on the edge of our country, right on the coast to protect our coast. We shut those down in order to save money, but we left over 800 around the world. Surely there were two around the world we could have shut down before we shut down two in South Carolina. We've got over 46,000 troops in Germany. Do we really need that many folks in Germany, one of our greatest allies? I think not. I think you bring those troops home. I think you make sure to protect our border and you save money and reduce the debt, reduce the spending. The Department of Education has no business in Washington, D.C. The people in South Carolina educate vastly different than they do in Vermont. The skill set's different, the workforce is different. We don't need, and if you don't like the education system, you can vote with your feet and move to Florida if you like the system better. That's what I believe in. That's a different government than Lindsey Graham. He doesn't even have the same philosophy from what I see.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lindsey Graham in Ukraine. What was your initial reaction? What do you think the reaction is of the voters when, I think it was in May that he traveled to Ukraine, like after the debacle in the White House, and after he said he was proud of President Trump and how he handled Zelensky. What was your reaction to that? It's
a dereliction of duty. He should have never been over there. He's not the one that's supposed to do that job. I think he wants to be Secretary of State. Somebody's forgotten to tell him over these 30 years, you're a United States Senator. That's not your job. The president had it under control. He said he was working it out. And the next day, him and, of course, one of the most liberal senators outside of him, Blumenthal, they go over have a press conference, and the next thing you know, we're bombing again. And we're paying for those bombs. Look, I want to do everything we can, diplomatic, in trying to solve these problems around the world, just like the surgical strike that the president did that was flawless. No American lives cost, right in and right out, but you know, the jets weren't even cool on those engines. Lindsey Graham was on the floor of the United States Senate with charts asking for regime change. Well, and he said our soldiers, this is quote, our soldiers would be willing to risk their lives for regime change in Iran. I disagree with the senator adamantly on that. Our soldiers are tired of going to fight these regime changes that, quite frankly, haven't worked out so well. They've actually ended up being worse than the regime that was there before. And we've continued to do this, and it has not worked. And he continues to push for this. I'm not a globalist. I believe in America first, and that means taking care of your home base. Look, I could ask you to give money to charity, but if they're getting ready to repossess your house, you're going to pay and make sure you take care of your bills before you help other people, because if you go bankrupt, you're not going to help anybody.
President Donald Trump has been on a major winning streak in the economy, immigration, trade, you name it. What do you think is the next big thing he should focus on?
That's a great question. He's knocked out some big ones. He's knocked out some real big ones, and so we're making a lot of progress. But I think one of the things is, and it's difficult for him, but he needs to, behind the scenes, look at who's stopping his agenda. Look, the big, beautiful bill was great. We got the tax cuts in there, but wouldn't it have been great if we could have cut some more? We're giving away money to people that aren't U.S. citizens. Really? Do we not want to hammer that out? But the problem is, he's got to work with what he's been given. He's got several liberal senators that he can't depend on. Look, it went down to the wire. The vice president had to break the tie. When we have the majority, why can't we govern like we're in the majority? What's the problem? Do we have people that just in a certain run with a certain title to make sure they get elected because they couldn't run another way? Lindsey Graham would be a Democrat in South Carolina. He is really a Democrat. He's not a Republican. You look at his record, again, he votes with Murkowski and Susan Collins. He's more like them. He's not like Tim Scott.